warm up for the basic power dynamics of Tai Chi. We start in a moderate horse riding stance, making sure our head is slightly back and up. Lengthen the spine, drop the tailbone under. Make it easy to open up the thighs into that nice strong arch. And sink the weight down into one leg, releasing down from the top. Hips and shoulders, elbows, knees, hands and feet. Feel the weight of the arms sinking into the hips. And then release back up to the center. We're gently compressing a spring and releasing back upward. Pausing in the center. 2 turns. The turn is happening below the hip bones, so below where my hands are sitting, right at the hip joint. Feeling that knees move slightly forward and back toward the toes, but don't twist inward. Let the whole upper body just ride along. And then add that turn to the weight shift, sinking into one leg, releasing back up to the center again. Really relax down, especially to that back hip. Let it open up. The amount of weight left there, about 30%. Feel it evenly spread, toe to heel, inside and outside of the foot. The arms swing. The arms loose but not slack, keeping the palms a little open. And percussion, strike the front, back, and hip bones. Releasing down into one leg, and releasing up through the body and out through the arms on the way up. Pausing in the center. We can also shift the weight and turn back the opposite way, and really watching that back hip. Opening it up, making sure the back knee is tracking toward the toes. Hip doesn't swing out. Shifting here to the A side, but turning to the B side. Sinking down to the B side, turning to the A side. Again, I can release up through the center and sink down. Swing the arms, patting the hips. Stepping in, slightly wider than body width stance. Hands again on the hip bones, toeing in, feeling what happens from both hips. Toeing out as well from both hips. So like 2 gates, swing closed and swing open. Particularly important in that back hip, that I don't twist the back leg alignment. Sinking my weight into the new leg, then releasing up slightly into that turn. I can see that a little bit in my gaze and the level of my eyes, very slightly down as I sink the weight and then slightly up toward a more level line. And then I can swing the arms again. It's more patting the hips. Sinking down, releasing up. If I lift my gaze slightly higher, my hands will swing up to rib height. So also encourage a little bit more twist in the back. Feel that twist reaching up from the hips up into the lower spine. Being careful that I don't twist my leg. My hip doesn't swing out. Raise the eyes a little higher. The upper hand will come to the front of the shoulder. Lower hand's hitting right at the lower back. Feel that twist a little higher up through the spine, rolling from the bottom up connecting with the movement of the head, the direction of the gaze. Slightly higher still, now looking just slightly higher than the level of my head. And that one hand will pat right at the base of the neck, upper shoulder, back hand still at the level of the low back, at the back of the waist. Back to the body width stance. Looking slightly down, load the legs, lift up. Open the front of the body, extend backward, not from the low back, but from the upper spine and from the hips. Keep the tailbone dropping under the body. Inner shoulder sinks, so hands come overhead, and then dropping the fingers, rolling down from the top of the spine. Just the uppermost spine first. Gradually working lower. Knees are soft, but not deeply bent. And I sink, hip and shoulder, elbow, knee, hands, and feet. And I release up through the legs, up through the body, and out through the arms. As I get deeper, I can start to bend my knees just a little bit more as my hips get into it. When I flex my hips sit back slightly. Do it at a comfortable pace, might be a bit slower than this. The breath should be sinking, should feel deep and relaxed in the abdomen. Each time I'm coming back up through the neutral position, hands right at the sides, eyes level. And then catching a ball, rolling it down the front of the body. Now I'm not going to bow forward, I'm just sitting back into the hips, a gentle squat. Knees up. Stand back again, squatting down. My gaze can drop a little bit. The crown of the head is still up, and my head is sinking straight towards the floor while my hips are sitting back. I want to keep my weight even toe to heel. That will determine how far I can sink down. Not leaning my head forward, my nose behind my knees no further forward than my toes, however far down that is comfortable. And then just the feeling of sinking down. Bend slightly. Knees down right to the core of the body. And then palms facing down. If I want to do a little bit more, I can return to that moderate horse riding stance. Go out to one side. I'm going to open up that back hip and shifting forward, turning my hips towards that front leg into a bow stance. Shifting back, opening the hips back up towards the rear foot. Chin in, crown up, spine long, tailbone dropping under, especially as I shift forward, where it's much harder to maintain that pelvic tilt. Don't try to tense up and hold the tailbone under. Try to release down from the top. And then keep the hips facing forward the whole time. Feel how that makes the lower back feel nice and full as we retreat. And that fullness moves to the front of the abdomen a little bit as we advance. The back foot stays planted even as the weight comes away from it. Back heel down, a little toe down. Back hip opens up, and I sit back, knees right over the toes. Toe in, toe out, shift forward, shift back, turning towards the rear leg. Stretch out that back leg. Turn towards the front. Turn comes entirely from the hips. So again, below the hip bones, below where my hands are resting. And then facing forward, feel that fullness come to the front on the way forward, to the back on the way back. Still game for a little more. You can return to the first side, and we can combine the arms with the movement. As we sit back, the hands are rolling over a round surface. And then sinking down as I sink my weight into the back leg, sink into that front leg, and then release up and forward, hip squaring, open up that back hip, open up a little bit as we start to retreat, and then sink. Sink down into that front leg and release up and forward. There's a slightly circular feeling, up over the top and down into that front leg. So the gaze is coming slightly down and then looking up and out to the distance. Feel the hips turning towards the front. Feel a slight rotation in the arms. Palms facing a little in as I retreat, and then turning slightly out as I push forward, without ever facing entirely flat forward. Still sink hip, shoulders, elbows, knees, hands, feet, and release up through the feet, up through the torso, out through the arms. While rising up slightly, the knees, the hips stay flexed the whole time. Gathering that spring-like compression and releasing up and out.